Hello, everyone that are guided here to view, to sit in, to feel, to contemplate whatever feels right on this beautiful day. I'm Tracy A. Martin, a hypnotherapist, practitioner, life guide, and intuitive at Opening Doors Productions. I have with me my co-host, Dreamer Divine, a beautiful accountability coach here at Opening Doors Productions. Would you like to say hello to all?
Good day, beautiful people. I'm super excited to be here and can't wait to see where these discussions go.
And yes, no questions were submitted for this week's question answer. But what I did want to play in today, to sit in, is I have many, many clients right now, and we watch how the collective consciousness is working when we'll have a whole consciousness shift. And it's been a lot of people that are wanting to become free from what they have decided their addictions are. And so I think this is a very heavy topic that many people have been indoctrinated into through programming to keep you as a victim, especially now in this month of May, where they really want to play on mental awareness and how they are literally programming you to have something wrong with you. This is a massive broken mind trap. That everyone has something wrong, that they are broken, that they're incomplete, because the easiest way for them to make a lot of money off of you is by making you believe you have some form of a condition. And if you've watched any of these podcasts, you'll understand that whenever a label is put on something, it doesn't give it any justice, if that makes any sense. There is no such thing as anxiety. That is the biggest broken mind trap. It is getting into the guts of what's really going on. You don't feel anxiety. You'll feel nervous, overwhelmed, rushed, mad, frustrated, uneasy, scared. And those have been repeating programs. But when you just label it as something, then you don't have to do anything about it because, oh, there we go. Now we know something's wrong with me. Instead of having to go in and sit in each and every feeling that you're feeling and why. And normally it's because of the programming of chaos and fear that are continually being thrown at you through every social media, every television, every radio, everywhere around your billboards. You've got it everywhere. There is so much oversensitizing happening throughout everywhere. Why are people feeling these ways? And so today I want to get into the guts of addiction, of what the third density world here, or I'll call the broken mind traps, have had you believe that it's called an addiction. And that is another broken mind trap. You are not addicted to anything other than escapism. So this is where I want to take you, is addiction versus escapism. So when we go further and further into pulling apart the label, throw it out of the way. Let's get into what it is that you actually want to do. Why are you doing it? Number one, you don't want to go inside. You do not want to face whatever is going on because you have been taught repeatedly to run from it. Escapism. What you knew as I'm addicted to, or somebody is addicted to. These are addictive behaviors. There is no such thing other than the need to escape from ourself. It can be having to smoke that cigarette because you've decided it's your best friend that helps you to, release, relax, to sit and do whatever, whether it's taking that puff or that gummy, whether it's drinking that drink, injecting, popping the pills, shopping, gambling, having sex, running, exercising, anything that you believe you have to do that will make you feel better already has you wanting to escape from your reality. And many people absolutely are trying to escape because they don't want to deal with what is being handed to them. And most people don't know how to cope because you have mostly all been taught that going inside and investing time in yourself has been a massive broken mind trap for you, because most people have been taught it's about everyone else but themselves. So let's take this even deeper. From the time you are born, you have some form of authoritarian that starts playing over top of you, whether it's a doctor, your teachers, everyone around you, and that want to tell you that they know better for you than you. And the whole society has been trained and ingrained into making you a really good slave. Correct. A really good slave. And many of you believe that you are not enslaved, but you are completely brought in to a slave mind trap, which is all about taking all the goods that you have and giving them to somebody else. Look at all of you who have put in years and years and years in what you call your workforce. And are you any further ahead? No. Society was designed to entrap you deeper and deeper and deeper. And this is why most people don't know how to cope, because it is the elite, the dark, the cabal, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, that have believed that they were controlling the world through massive mind control, through massive psyops. And if you don't want to believe it, that's okay. But that's exactly what's been going on for a very, very long time. They create through repetition new neural pathways that create the new programs of what they want done. We have many people that are beautiful, beautiful, beautiful souls that have no idea that they only know to be used. They believe they're being really good providers. Providing for what? They have zero time to give to their loved ones, because all that matters is the mentality of their work ethic. But they have never been taught their family ethic, their me ethic. Can we respect anyone when we do not know how to respect ourselves? Can we honor anyone when we don't know how to honor ourselves? No. We can only give an idea. Escapism is real. The fact that whatever it is to that gives you that power, or we will call it a vice, it doesn't matter what it is. And this is the depth of the guts of where we want to take you all today, for all of you listening, because each and every one of us have some form of a vice. Whether it is good for us or not good for us is in the paradox that we play. Many of my bodybuilder clients that have come to me are trying to protect their heart. So they build massive muscle walls around themselves. Or the same goes for my clients wanting to lose weight. They have put a protective layer all around them to protect themselves from their heart. The paradox is the extremism on both sides. Instead of getting back to the guts of who you are and why you've decided that love hurts, instead it is always lack of love that hurts. Most people that have gotten into bodybuilding will end up with heart issues because of the supplementation, of the overexertion, everything that's happening, because no matter what, you have to go to the source of what is eating at you inside. People who run, they will not deny when I sit them in the chair of why they believe they have to run, when they are causing severe issues on their knees, their hips, joint pains, because of their fear of moving forward. So they're running. They're literally trying to escape through their addiction that you've decided to running. which is escapism. They're trying to run from themselves of what is going on in their life. People who shop. How many of you have had shopper's remorse? Many do, because they're in a place of chaos or nervous or just feeling unloved, not worthy enough. So then they go out and they spend a bunch of money on stuff they didn't ever need and really didn't want, but they were looking outside of themselves for something that would make them feel better, and they didn't, because they bring it home, and now they feel buyer's remorse because they knew that material wasn't what was going to make them feel good. Because no matter what, you have to invest in you. Take that time to get in and sit in why you are unhappy. Why are you choosing this unhappiness? No one is going to bring you happy. The next thing we get into is that of sex addiction or sex escapism, using someone else to try to fulfill the needs you're looking for. And you will see the emptiness of that sexual experience because it just becomes a fuck, because it has zero content in it, because there's no intimacy, because you can't expect intimacy from someone you can't be intimate with yourself. So the deeper you go in to becoming intimate with yourself, the less you need it outside of yourself. So, Dreamer Divine, what kind of vices have you worked through, especially through the 8-week course? I know that was one of the greatest aha moments for you that were able to help you with many things. And again, it doesn't matter what size vice or what you've termed it. They're all something that you were attaching outside of yourself, believing it would make you feel better instead of yourself. Would you like to take it away?
So when you actually sit down to look at what a vice is and what the description of it is, you realize that things that you didn't even know were vices become vices and they're what you think you need to get through. So I remember even when my children were little, it's a common stereotype almost of moms needing coffee to get through their day because their children aren't sleeping. And that was a big one for me. It was wake up in the morning and, oh my God, I need coffee because that's what's going to help me get through the day. I need it. And that is what I need to get through the day. Instead of looking at the bigger picture and maybe figuring out what your body needs or what you need to get the rest and the recuperation that you need from missing that sleep, or how to deal with it yourself. And so there was vices like coffee that I realized. Also, there was, if you have small children and things become chaotic and you feel like you're out of control and you get to that downtime point and you think that you need a drink to unwind, or you need that alcohol to just take the edge off. And so those were the things that I had told myself of like, okay, now I've had such a big day and there's been so much going on that I can relax and this drink will help me relax, instead of viewing it as, I like wine, I enjoy the taste of wine, but I don't need it to solve a problem. It's just an experience that I would like to have instead of relying on that experience. It's just experiencing and letting it go. Yeah. And another one that you don't even think about in the big picture of things was another vice that I had was makeup. You realize, that you feel like you need to put yourself together as a mom before you leave the house so that, you can put this face on for the entire world. But really, if you don't want to put it on, it doesn't matter because you're showing up as yourself no matter what, and take it or leave it. I don't need all of this makeup. There's a difference between putting it on because it's also another stereotype of I need to put myself together to go out in public, instead of just I'm showing up exactly how I am. But if I want to do it to make myself feel better, or, and it feels good to put makeup on because you're being creative with it and using colors and making yourself look, different in how you prefer, it totally is a different experience again, versus thinking that you need to look a certain way or feel a certain way when you leave the house. Because really, makeup or not, you're not looking at yourself in the mirror the whole time you're out. So it doesn't matter. And you feel how you feel regardless. So yes, those were a few things that I definitely had to work through, and that was an interesting experience overall.
Thank you, Dreamer Divine. This, I hope, helps you sit in further of, oh, what do you mean coffee's a vice? What do you mean this is a vice? What do you think this is a form of escapism? Yeah. How, in all the years of what I have been doing, the one thing that I know of why people believe they can't give up smoking is because they've decided that that toxic cigarette is its best friend. And this again goes into the programming of what love is to you and what love is not to you. Love will not ever want to do harm. So an object that you've decided to love that is harming you, that is destroying you, is a really deep-seated place to sit in to decide why what I believe destruction is an idea of love. Like I've said, there's many different types and forms of vices. Some of them are toxic and cause many damages. We've watched at how people who have given themselves the label alcoholism, again, another label, will see how it is destroying all the families around them. And they're trying to blame it on alcohol. Alcohol can just sit in a bottle and never destroy anything. But the moment you consume it, you give the creation to everything that happens. And this is another broken mind trap that people have been good at being a victim in, blaming the cigarettes, blaming the drugs, blaming the alcohol, blaming everybody else, instead of who's the one making the choice. In every action that you choose, there will be a reaction. Cause and effect is real. It is universal. It will always be. And again, the fact that people don't want to take responsibility in what their actions are doing or causing for harm on others. Like I've said, a cigarette unlit doesn't do anything. The moment that cigarette is lit, what is that secondhand smoke doing to everyone around you? Why is everyone else needing to pay for your choices? How many people became into the escapism of running away and going to bingo and would spend thousands of dollars playing bingo because they said it brings them joy, but they have $0 in their bank account and can't afford food on the table for their own children. Excuses are just lies. If you believe you need to have that cigarette, it's because you believe that cigarette is more powerful than you. If you believe that that gummy or that prescription drug, or especially opioids, we know the biggest hooked on feeling that people are feeling are from prescription medications, more so than anything natural out there. And I have many clients who have succeeded in loving themselves and breaking through the need for anything outside of themselves. Many of you don't want to believe that because you love sitting in victim mode. You love being taken care of by your medical system, who are making nothing but great money off of you and slowly killing you, killing your mind, killing your ideas, because especially many of my clients who were told they needed anti-anxiety medication or antidepressants, and it does the exact opposite to them. It makes them a zombie, makes them numb, so now they cannot process the smallest little thing. They don't feel joy, they feel nothing. That's really good for you, isn't it? You're sentient beings. One of the greatest things about us being in this human form, in this, vessel that we are playing in, is the fact that we are looked in by other forms of beings that do not have sentience. They do not understand emotion. And that is where many abductions have happened from, because they're trying to understand this beautiful factor of sentience. When you understand how the psychopaths and sociopaths that have been trying to play and project onto our plane, you bet these crazy crazies are trying to project into your mental planes for you to be completely void of feeling, to be a really good zombie, a really good robot, and just do what you're told. So escapism, let's take this even deeper. And I've had people say, but opioids are severely addictive. Not all of them. No, they're not. It's all mindset. The fact that you were told you needed those to begin with, and you listened to whoever told you because there's some form of God over you, and you said you needed them. Did you know that when you actually, like so many people that have had the time or even money to start really, really investigating, do you know why most of the wars that have happened all over the world have been around opium wars? And do you realize that there is opium in almost every form of medication out there? The need for it, what is the addiction for it, is the escapism that happens in it. The feeling that people start to feel. The parasitic, when you understand frequency, when you understand vibration, when you understand everything has a specific, no different than Royal Rife talking to you about how cancers, all these different forms of what we call dis-ease or disharmony, all have a frequency it resonates in. And that when you use a resonance above it and below it, it can have it implode, therefore eradicating it. When we understand that certain plants, that is why the whole pharmaceutical industry knows they need a derivative from those plants because of the frequency that it has, that it can lower you into. Then you start understanding, instead of you seeing the label of addiction, and you start understanding the frequency that has been played with it to hold you in a certain frequency, which is that low, dense place. Why did they make alcohol so very, very much important through the whole shit show that happened and that scamdemic that happened? Number one, they made sure in Canada that all the cannabis stores were considered needed and alcohol. Yet children's clothing, really healthy things that were needed for you were taken. Do you understand the broken mind traps in this? Do you understand the psychological warfare that traps you? And actually, I will rephrase that because most of you through this whole thing felt very trapped. But I want you to change your perspective into what's called entrapped. So when we feel trapped versus entrapped means that we were kind of pigeonholed into something. And most of us, the great thing is, the moment you feel entrapped or entrapment, most people will actually start to fight back. When you feel trapped, that trapped feeling makes you feel like you are helpless. You've never been helpless. You have never been helpless. You are the most important strength. That is you. No one can be who you are. You are a specific vibration and frequency. You are a color and a melody that is seen from all the universes and the multiverses. They see that as your stamp of who you are, not the physical body of who you are, because that is an illusion of it. It is the wholeness that when you aren't in this physical body anymore, what are you? This beautiful energy that you are. So when you start understanding and sitting in, getting rid of all the labels and all the this and the that and the vices, and you get interested in understanding that we will vibe to us the same type of frequency. No different than when you are feeling the need for a bag of chips versus an apple. The greatest thing that they've told us is whatever you are craving is because it is wanting the same magnetic attraction. So it will be a telltale sign of where you're vibing. So all of you that are consciously wanting to become higher and deeper in their vibe, in that strength, in that security of who you are, that solidarity of who you are, when you see where you're vibing in that fluctuation emotions, you'll see what you are wanting. People who were smokers for years that are in a place of not knowing how to cope will suddenly have a craving to smoke a cigarette because of the repetition that played in those neural pathways to create the program in your mind that that's how I used to cope, was to take that. So that is that old underlying repetition that would be the first responder to you. No different than why when someone was feeling this nervousness or excitement or fear, what would be their first go-to in the past when they are breaking through these feelings is to know, what do I do to cope? And it always has to do with becoming gentle with yourself, kind and compassionate with yourself, and giving you the love and care that you need in that moment so that you can totally cope. Some of the biggest broken mind traps, and it doesn't matter with what you've been avoiding or not coping with, that when you start learning your coping mechanisms or your emotional intelligence of being able to sit in the emotions and decide the solution of moving forward, it is what that repetition starts to become, that you start coping normally, naturally, because it's repetitive. So no different than many programs that were designed out there to help you break through these addictions. But what you'll see, what happens, they're very broken because they will continually have you stand up and say you are something that you no longer are, as if shame will really help you out of it. Instead of, I am an empowered soul. I used to need this to cope, but now I am doing this. What would those groups look like? Instead of it just being the pity party victimization of everyone telling their story over and over and over again, believing that these stories should give you some form of hope. Hope is a zero action. People speaking what they did or they do is a leader that starts to have a following. A leader leads by example. Most of us, when people ask, where have you been in your life? What was this? What was that? I don't talk about it because it's not the story. That's not the story. That's the past. I don't care who I was at 16. I don't care who I was 10 days ago. It's in the past. Who am I right now? Am I showing up on purpose? What did I choose on whatever day of whatever year to finally start coping was the beginning of solutions, of forward feeling, of coping. Does that have anything to do with who I am today? No. Who you are right now is who you're choosing to be right here and right now. Many people drink. Many people do drugs. Many people have forms of escapism. And the biggest thing that happens with escapism is excuse creation. So I will hear people say, I am rewarding myself with that glass of wine because I had a hard day. You're still giving your power away. It still becomes a vice. No matter how you sugarcoat it, if it is a alcohol, it has a type of vibration that it will lower you to. So it's all about choice, but quit lying to yourself. So if you believe you are rewarding yourself with something that is not for your highest good, how are you still in destructive behavior? This is what escapism does. People will say, yeah, well, I work out 7 days a week. How can that be bad for you? Do you need to work out 7 days a week? Or do you enjoy working out 7 days a week? And when you feel pain, does it feel good? Is that still destructive behavior? Forcing yourself to do something outside of yourself is the vice of escapism. And so then it becomes the choice of, what is it that I feel like doing? Why? Because I want to honor my body, because I want to honor my mind, I want to honor my emotions and my spiritual beingness, because all four have to play a factor for us to have full harmony. You'll watch many people that, have decided, they have all these decisions on being extremists. Extremism is another form of escapism. And you'll see this in people who are going through recovery programs where they will have exact other extremisms that they need to attach to, which is still them not dealing with going inside and learning to cope and love themselves so that they strengthen their inner self, knowing nothing outside of themselves is ever going to bring you joy. You are choosing joy by becoming the creator in that moment. Instead of being consumed by having to buy that pack of cigarettes, by having to have that bottle of wine, by having to, you're becoming consumed in it instead of the creator in it. So let's talk about some of the good forms of vices and how extremism still is damaging your mental, emotional planes. So we know, for instance, that the amount of hijacking that's going on in our air, in our water, in our food, in our mental programming, our lack of emotional and the spiritual disarray of, whether we have hijacking in religions that were created to keep you suppressed and oppressed. We have all these forms of hijacking that are continually trying to keep you from being this magnificent creator being that you are. So, for instance, I'll speak about what my vice is, because I love activating. I love myself. I love my mental self, my emotional, my spiritual, everything to do with me. Because if I don't love and care for all bits and parts of all that I am, I'm lying to myself and have decided on some form of destructive behavior. So when I talk about activating, I talk about what's called nutraceuticals, which are different than vitamins or supplementation. We talk about nutraceuticals that are biohackers, which actually get in and shake hands to get inside your cell. So when I religiously will say, or faithfully, or every day of my life have made sure that I take my activation products. Why? Because they help me take care of me. And is it still a vice? You bet it is. And until the med beds and the technologies have eradicated and neutralized all the harm that has happened on every plane, then I know that I won't need anything. But because I know what it does on a cellular level and has done in my life, and because it did not matter anything out here, nothing, not one thing that was created through nature by itself has been able to have activating effects because of the hijacking that they did on purpose, because of the genetic modifying, the pesticide sprays, everything that have taken away the nutritional value because of what's here on this plane. Do I have a problem giving it up? You bet, because I'm not going to be healthy if I'm not. We've watched many people that chose to take it and then decided, it's not doing anything for me, and they walk away from it. And then they're oxidated and hijacked again because this is this plane. Is that a vice I'm willing to live with? Absolutely. Am I worth it? Absolutely. And when I take it, does it do any harm? Zero. It does the opposite. That's why I have no issues with it. But is there something that I am taking that causes harm? No, I have let go of every vice of escapism that I needed in my life. And that is the biggest part of knowing you cannot be a hypocrite. Do I drink? No. Do I do drugs? No. Do I need them? No. Did I? At one time, I sure believed I did. I believed from a young age, and this is where most of the broken mind traps really start the conditioning. Let's take you all to the place of how excited it was for you to sneak or steal alcohol from your parents because you watched how they partied and whatever else going on, and think that it's some form of rite of passage when you turn 18 in where we come from, that when you became the legal age of 18, that you could get into the bar and you could drink. That is a broken mind trap that has you trapped instantaneously in believing you have a rite of passage to get to drink. How fucked up is that? Seriously. The fact that they think that everyone's rite of passage is to do that. You look at many conditionings, programs, religions, cultural decisions of what the rite of passage is, of what they get to do or be or become when this is. Is it healthy for them? Does it do anything for them? Does it just make them become dependent? Because they want to fit in. They want to become this. They want to become that. We have to sit in the broken mind traps that have been pre-programmed for a very long time for people to believe it's normal, that it's cultural, or that it's a society thing. What's wrong with you? When I started to not want to drink alcohol anymore, it was because it didn't matter if I had 1 or 20, I felt like crap. And as I started vibing higher and in deeper into myself, I knew that I did not want anything taking my mojo. And that is one of the greatest empowerment places that you feel when you use discernment instead of what was repetition and what was normal to you. And it was only those people that had an issue with me not drinking alcohol. One moment, please. Cheers to life. It was only people who had an issue with me not drinking because they needed to drink. So, for instance, I had friends of ours, and they had been very much brought up in the Mormon religion. And the great thing is they used discernment and started to realize there was a lot of fallacies within what they had seen, and the harm and the mental anguish that so many people would go through in some of these religions. So they broke away. And because they were taught within their Mormon religion not to drink alcohol or even pop, anything that would change your which is amazing, because like we've said, many of the religions were formed around certain truths that they then taint and twist and distort for their own little pleasure. And so it was like they had to make up for a lifetime of not having it in their life. Kind of like when you will see, because that's how the brain works. It knows that what you are deciding you need isn't the issue, it's you. I'll have people, I can't eat chocolate. I'm on a diet. I'm not supposed to touch chocolate. And what will happen? Your mind, your brain will want it 24/7 till it gets it, because it knows the chocolate isn't the issue. It's you in the place of lack that makes it want it. When I have so many clients who they were completely kept away from being able to experience and eat when they felt like eating what they were drawn to, they will end up with severe weight gain when they move out of the place they were at or whatever, because they were controlled for so long that not one of them were taught coping mechanisms on number one, how to stop when you're full, because they were always constantly starving because someone else decided to control their idea of what they were allowed to eat and when, which is tyranny. And so then these people have severe, severe weight issues after, no different than people who were, weren't allowed to have something. And it was like they were, it was thrown at them and pulled back all the time, like psych, all this stuff. And so then they have this over access they need to make up for, and they become so extremely involved in everything having to have alcohol in it in order to have any kind of fun. That, for instance, we were sitting at our lake, and does anyone know what's in their little sippy cup to go? Nope. But because they had overheard me in a conversation talking about how I don't drink anymore, and it wasn't because I ever had a problem, it's because I didn't like how I felt. I didn't like how it felt like it totally took away from me. And this person could not give it up. There's 20 of us sitting around a fire, and this person could not understand why I wasn't having a drink, and kept, as if we were young teenagers trying to force a drink. I mean, come on, just have a drink. What's wrong with you? Or I'd get people like, oh, my mom, when she was going through menopause, didn't drink for a while, and then she started again. Do you understand the ridiculousness that people will try to throw at you because you're choosing to do something that they're not? Do you need to fit in? Is that where most of you picked up your destructive behaviors, was to fit in? Because society is all about keeping you destructive, keeping harm. Would you like to weigh in on this, Dreamer Divine?
I definitely think that it was a programming that happened at a young age for sure. Because in order to fit in, it was always about, and even in school, it was always about going to the parties. And, that was what made you popular, because if you went back to school the next day and, oh man, like you didn't go to that party, you missed out on whatever, it was a constant reminder that if you didn't participate in all the peer pressure, that you missed out, and you're constantly missing out. Even if you weren't allowed to go to a party, you hated your parents because of it, because they didn't let you go to the party and you missed out, and now you're not as cool. And it was always, constantly embedded in your brain that, if you missed out on things, that you totally missed out, and that now you've missed a whole gap and you're not cool anymore, and you need to make up for that. And then that's how people go into overdrive. So then when they are allowed to go to a party, then they overkill it, and it's a whole nother experience, and then it turns into a negative experience. And so constantly, I agree, it has been ingrained at very young ages. And it's very interesting to see now how you can look back and view and see how crazy it is, and now choose to make different choices and do it for yourself. Absolutely.
You bet. And how many people would, because of the broken mind traps of competing and comparing, when you can't compete or compare against anyone, you can work through yourself to become better at what you've chosen or you feel you want to do. But most people don't realize it wasn't for you. It was for personal gain towards somebody else, for approval or validation of others. I had a young niece that I had living with me for a while, and we were getting her back to going to school and all that. And like I said to her, I have zero issue with you doing work hard, play hard, but there's a time and a place. So if you believe that partying on the weekends is your way of rewarding yourself for all the effort you put in, whatever you believe you need to do, we're going to play with these games. And if you see people at lunchtime with a tote going around, did you know that if you just pass it along, they're not actually going to say anything? Or they'll just ask you once. But you still get to be a part of the group. You didn't have to smoke it. How many of us used to have smoking pits when we were in high school back in the day? And guess what? It didn't matter who was smoking or who wasn't. Other than the people trying to bum the cigarettes off of you or a light off of you. People didn't care who was smoking or not. The fact that we were hanging out in a group and is what we were doing. I don't look to see what someone's drinking in their cup. I will ask them, would you like a beverage? I don't care what you want to have in it. You didn't ask me what I want in mine to judge me. Why would I be judging you? And if you are judging me, have fun with that. You can judge me all day long because it doesn't matter. But it's getting back to the conditioning and the repetition of what you believed you needed. And this is the guts of escapism. Why is it that we have been taught to continually look outside of ourselves for others' opinions, approval, their creativeness? You know, it's really wonderful. They had me sit in how far have we come and how much has technology been for us or against us? And I remember watching a documentary on a bunch of singers and musicians from soul families. And it was about the whole Soul Train era. And there wasn't television to watch. There wasn't all these things to do, video gaming, all that to keep your mind away from being the creator other than being consumed in something. And we watched some of the most amazing musicians, and their whole families were singing and doing piano or guitar or whatever. And they became these musical families because that's what they did for a pastime, and they were creating. And we watched how these people had such great soul to them. You could hear it in their words that they were singing. Their whole body was feeling it, and you still see it in those words. Like, for instance, when I hear Stevie Wonder and, you know, the documentary on him alone, when you watch people that when they miss one of the senses, how they super heighten other ones. And you would watch him, when I would watch him live on television and his whole body moving while he sang, is why I would feel so moved, because that is true soul speaking or singing, because it's not just a song, it's his whole embodiment that came out, and you could feel the emotions, you could feel everything in them. And you know, today where there's technology, what have people done with that technology where they're creators, whether it's, you know, playing as the DJs that are out there cutting music, all that kind of stuff, where they're bringing creation too. Do you feel the same movement in your soul? Because now technology or artificial intelligence is playing in there. And that is why we know escapism became even deeper and deeper, because of what they are projecting in our airways and all that, for us to stay into a certain frequency, which is numbing, which is a form of escapism, because it zombies you. It makes you numb. It pulls you outside of yourself, away from who you really are inside. And anyone that's using discernment is always going to show up. I am here on purpose. And what am I observing now? And I have zero. I have never been interested in anything in the form of rap, because most of it was so geared at hate. And it was like children having a temper tantrum. And you could be 50 years old singing rap, and it still looks like you're a 2-year-old having a temper tantrum. And that's what it was all about. And when we understand how programming started to happen, you know, especially after the invasion in 1996, where they really, really started to change the music industry, and where when we would go out and we would go to a dance or a hall or whatever, and we would have so much fun. And the reason so many people loved the words in those songs is because there was a meaning in it, and it was telling a story in it. Instead of, you know, the forever people that would laugh about the comedies of what would happen if you reversed a country music record and they'd get their dog back, their wife back, their job back, all that kind of stuff. And it was all to indoctrinate you into a place of escaping and loss. Our movies, every Disney movie, especially now that people who are waking or, you know, awakening to the whole woke movement of them trying to completely do psyops with you, they have continually, in almost every movie, all of Disney, but very many of them, when you watch certain TV series, all those things, did you see how they were programming you to release family so that it was all about friends and not about family anymore? How about how they are always stuck having to do it on their own because their family members die or are killed or something, where there's never ever a whole unit. It's about accepting loss all the time, of this is what's going to happen and put into your projected plane, and that you'll have to overcome some kind of hardship because life is always going to be hard. And there are certain programs that they're putting in there that are helping you to go inside to get the strength. But guess what? They make it look like you had zero support. And what has now happened? What has now happened on so many levels that are now playing out for those of you who are on your awakening journey is you're seeing that there is no one there to build you up, support you up, to help you on, because people have been taught to berate, belittle, compete, and compare everybody. We're going deeper because escapism is each and every part of that, of what has made you believe you need something outside of yourself to feel whole. What happened when you realized, Dreamer Divine, when you realized, okay, so I see that I was giving coffee power to start my day instead of me knowing my day's my day, whether I drink it or not? What happened with that?
I think it's just more of a feeling of freedom almost. It's where you get to decide how you feel after that point, instead of putting all of your faith in something to do it for you. You put the faith back in yourself. And it's very interesting because you can go through almost a morning of it if you choose to consistently think that you need to rely on it, and then you go through withdrawals of it, instead of deciding, you know what, no, I don't need that. I can have it to enjoy it when I feel like it, but it doesn't make me do something or feel something that I don't want to feel or I don't want to do. So like, just because you have coffee, yes, some people get wired and jittery, but that doesn't mean you're going to be any less tired at the end of the day. And so the experience of deciding that, no, this coffee is not going to control how I feel, is totally a freeing feeling, which you take your own power back and you decide from there where you go with your experiences with coffee. And it's that simple.
And do you know what it's so true? Like Dreamer Divine said, the freedom you feel the moment you stop believing, which is all mindset, that you needed that to begin with. It's so great to look at it as such a learning tool, and you look at it way differently when you look back. Like I know I had started smoking when I was 10 because I thought I was cool, and then it became part of my coping because I was very shy, very nervous, which is why I started drinking at a young age too. And we saw it all around us. My mom and dad were very social, and so they partied every weekend. And so it became a part of the whole program of what it was, of what the parents did, and what we did as kids, having fun. And we would pretend to be like them and smoke our cigarettes, which were crayons, stuff our bras, and have all the different pop shop pops out to make different drinks because we were going to be drinking like we were adults. And you don't realize that they're watching absolutely everything, creating the program of what's normal, of what they want. And so that was one of the biggest things I did with my girls is we didn't necessarily have parties. We would give our grandkids away to our grandchildren, or to my mom and dad, or we'd have babysitters or whatever, because I didn't believe children needed to be around all the adultism, the amount of ridiculous behavior that would happen. And that is where we would have so many of those issues that didn't become normal programs for them. We would have entertainments, but it was knowing you wanted to, number one, be more of sound mind. You didn't want to be the drunk adult when you had children that you were raising. And some people did, and that became normal for them. And so they started drinking as a normal thing all the time because it was normal. And so the moment you look back at it, for instance, when I stopped wanting a cigarette, was in one moment. Thank God for angels here on earth. And I had no withdrawals. I had zero issue because it is a mindset deal. Everything you've decided inside of you egoically is a mindset issue. So that's why they call it broken mind traps, so that they can trap you into believing something. Because if you can perceive it, you can believe it. And if you believe it, it happens. So let's get us into little baby steps. One moment. Dawn, I'm going to let you talk for a bit here. I have somebody just at my door.
So yeah, as Tracy was saying about, it's all in a mindset, and it's how you choose to decide to make your decisions, instead of feeling like there's only one way out or there's only one way in, when you can decide and you feel from your heart, honestly. And that's one of the best and freeing feelings, is when you get to decide, not based on anybody else's judgment of what you think or how you think they're going to react to it. You get to decide on your own how that's going to make you feel and how that outcome is going to happen for you.
Sorry about that. I have my winter washer guys showed up early. So don't you love when people come early? That's great. I am excited for all of you to sit in all of what you're hearing, what you're seeing, what you're feeling here, because when you realize the mindset difference between someone trying to tell you you have a disease, or which is what they've thrown in the mental plane, that addiction is a disease and that it's not curable, they're the biggest liars out there. I have hundreds of clients of mine who took their own power back and have never looked back. And they have loved up so many people because they can love themselves. So this has everything to do with being the victor and not the victim. And as long as you allow a master to play your puppet strings, to tell you there's something constantly wrong with you and that you need them, who's the one searching outside of themselves to have control? The sociopaths and the psychopaths will always mirror back to you their behaviors, because they are broken, they are distorted, and they only know to try to control, manipulate, berate, and use others, because they can never ever feel fulfilled. They have sold their souls, so they will never feel fulfillment. I have clients who I have worked with, and I love them so dearly because they made choices not realizing by signing on a dotted line what it would do to them, and how they have been working through and breaking through some of the most atrocities that none of us ever want to experience. And they're doing it against all odds, because we are beautiful beings of light that are master creators, that are here to remember that we are the master creators that created these beautiful realities. And the more that you focus in on yourself and love yourself, and it can begin, like I've said, with Dreamer Divine, when she realized coffee was what was holding her back and she gave it up because it means nothing. She's everything. And that's why I love Dreamer Divine. And that's why she's such an amazing accountability coach, because she's not a hypocrite, because she's continually going in and sitting in stuff so that she can feel it and break through it, because it's always, always, always you in your own way. It is always going to be mindset that is creating your next set of breath of where you're in. And we know you can be doing 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That's okay. It's called a dance. We enjoy that because it can't always just be forward, or you'd be bored. You really would be. Because the observer is taking a step back and observing a situation before they make the next action or reaction. So, Dreamer Divine, do you have any words that you would love to love people up with before we're done today?
I just want to say I love you all and thank you so much for taking the time to join us and listen to each and every podcast. We really appreciate it. And also take what you need from it and leave the rest behind. But thank you for coming back and wanting to make yourself better and make those steps to go forward and grow constantly. It's a journey for a reason, because it's a never ending journey. You're constantly growing, constantly learning. And like Tracy said, even if you take a couple steps back, because you are going to find yourself in those places sometimes, you know how to move forward from there because you've been forward and you know how forward feels good. And so, yes, thank you again. We love you all and have an amazing day.
Ah. Oh, can you say that one more time, Dawn? You froze up a bit.
Oh, sorry. I just want to thank you all again for joining us and for taking the time out of your day or whatever you're doing to just listen and be open to growing and learning and constantly going in deeper and loving yourself and moving forward. Because sometimes it takes a couple steps back to move forward in leaps and bounds. It always isn't just 1 step back, it can be leaps forward. So, yes, you're always learning, always growing, and we love you and have an amazing day.
Thank you, Dreamer Divine. And again, this is new, maybe for you, maybe not, but everything that you feel yourself into, feel yourself there. That's what this is all about. Sit in it, feel it, and be whatever you want to be, because it's always, always going to be you in your own way. So you might as well choose you today. So I love you all. We'll see you next time.